How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for another creator conversation, the show where we talk to our favorite creators about our favorite comic books. Today we have Mahdi Khene from ZuperHero Comics. You know him from Bootleg Spider-Man. You know him from Steel Streets and his ZuperHero line. Of course, I have Eric, 9-Panel Grid, and Stu, Dr. Doom's Fan Club with me. Let's check out our conversation with Mahdi. Man, Mahdi Khene, we saw you just a couple of weeks ago over at Heroes Con. I cannot believe it was almost a month ago. We were just saying, like,
no way.
You know, it's a month away, and now it's a month ago, which is really shitty. So,
crazy.
But it's great to see you again, man. How you doing this morning?
Pleasure's all mine, man. It's always good to see familiar faces. You guys are looking good, feeling good, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. How was your Heroes Con, man? You went there a couple of years in a row. What was the difference?
Heroes Con is always a surreal experience. It's you're treated so well, and people are so nice, and it's the one time a year you feel like a somebody. You know what I mean? Because most of the time, you're sat in your room just like drawing away, doing your thing. Then you go to Heroes Con, and then it's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. It's nice. It's great. It's the greatest show. Was it cool for you guys?
It was for me, Stu. Eric, man, Stu, what did you think of your experience? First year for you, right?
That was my first major con. I'd been to, Galaxy Con before here in up here in Richmond and Virginia where I'm at. But yeah, going down there to Charlotte was mind blowing. Just not only like the roster of creators and artists and writers that they have on tap, but just the energy, how grateful and happy everyone was to be there. The conversations we had with everybody, whether it was waiting in line or hanging out at the drink and draw or the art auction. It was just so much amazing energy and met so many amazing people. Yeah, it was mind blowing. Mahdi, is that your favorite con amongst like all the cons you do? Is that your number one? Or I was wondering where it ranks on the list.
I feel like if I say anything publicly, there's going to be a dart that's going to come out and shoot me in the neck. So favorite con. What's a favorite con?
What are you talking about?
Whenever I'm at that con, it's my favorite con. But then other cons are also great.
Yeah.
Invite me to every con.
Great answer.
No, but it is. I can say, yeah. But to be undiplomatic, it is. I think it's known. It's a fantastic con. It's what it is that it has the vibe of an indie and small convention, but at a large scale. And I think that's something that's very special. And I think everyone would agree. Creators, and you have people that organize other conventions that go to Heroes Con and kind of they take notes. So
yeah, no doubt. And Stu, you picked up something really special when you went there, right? What'd you get, man? Do you want to show it off real quick?
Yes, absolutely, man. Yeah, this wonderful Dr. Doom. The prompt was Dr. Doom doing something cool, and Mahdi came through in spectacular fashion. So yeah, thank you for that commission, brother. So amazing.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I love awesome. I love prompts like that. When someone tells me just like, hey, can you something as vague as possible that I just have to, it's great.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, you came through, dude. I love the hood ornament on the front and everything. It's just got so many layers of cool.
It's perfect.
It's just so good. But yeah, thank you.
It was perfect.
Thank you, man.
But Stu, you weren't the only one. Eric got something really cool too, man. Eric, you want to show off what your piece that you got as well?
Well,
does this embarrass me?
No, embarrass me the riches, if anything. So yeah, I mean, considering the very clear lineage between Steel Streets and some of these other properties, I had to pick up a Ninja Turtles here. I mean, when I saw it in your portfolio, I immediately knew this is mine now. Yeah. This is no one else's.
That's really funny. I like how you kept the tail too. You kept like the old school.
You have to
ambiguous.
I mean, yeah.
Tail.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it.
For sure. Well, dude, again, thank you so much for coming in. So we have some process questions. We're going to be going over a lot of different stuff with you real quick, and we just want to pick your brain, man, because you're a brilliant guy, and we respect what you do, and we wanted to learn a little bit more about your process. So let's get into that right now. Stu, you want to kick us off, man? What you got?
Yeah, absolutely. Watched a ton of interviews and kind of in preparation for today. So I saw something and heard you say something interesting. I think it was an interview with Michael Troy that I wanted to go back and hear more on. That we have Smallville really to thank for your comic book career. Like during COVID, as I understood it, you were in the house without much to do as a musician without getting gigs, and you went back and revisited Smallville, and that kind of like inspired you to create your own superhero world, as it were. I just wish I was having your life and revisiting that show and how kind of it put you back to the drawing board,
right.
And kicked off your
career.
Like
Smallville, I've revisited that show maybe, like, I'm almost ashamed to say, like, every year for the last since it's been out. It's a gross habit that I have that I'm trying to kick, but I can't help myself. I love that show. Even the bad seasons, I eat it up. I just love it. But I mean, it's one of those shows that it was the first kind of superhero show I had seen that treated it with like respect almost, It's on one scale it was so epic and kind of ridiculous and sort of silly and stuff. But then when you had the overarching story, arching? I don't know. The overall story, I never know. It kind of, the way it built on itself, and it was a slow burn in between all these little stories. It's something that just seeped into me since I was a kid. And then when I was chilling during COVID and rewatching it at this point, it's like I just put it on and just kind of glaze on it because I know every line. I know every this is a confessional. This is not. This is an intervention. Oh no!
If you're among friends, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, we want to bring up your Smallville addiction. I'm like, no. But yeah, I was just watching it, and then it kind of clicked in my head because I mean I'd been drawing a little bit throughout the years, but I hadn't really kept up with it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wait a second. I love superheroes. I love Smallville. I love all these things. Why don't I make up my own thing? And as a joke, I said it could be ZuperHero, like a antithesis Bizarro, sort of switch the S to the Z. That was basically it. And so, and then honestly, I mean, the way I write, if you read all the comics I make, you can almost find the pop culture thing that inspired it throughout. I started realizing this when I was kind of Slumdog Millionairing myself, where I was like, I would write something, it would be the comic that my brother would be like, do you realize that's from when you were 10 years old and I accidentally let you see RoboCop, blah, 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 this and that. So it's like, and Smallville is a big part of that, where you, the way they tell their stories, I really am into, and so, yeah, I mean, I kind of based a lot of it, not intentionally on it, but just kind of it seeped in.
Yeah. You never know what like influences are going to seep into your work, So that's really funny that subconsciously you were creating things that you may have seen before, but like everybody does that, right? Like I rip off everybody and everything I do. So
And I actually, at a convention at Fan Expo Boston a couple years ago, I met Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum. They were doing like their signing, and I went up to them. I said thank you, and I sized up Tom Welling to see if he was actually taller than me. He is in fact a huge man. So but I was like, I could take you as Michael Rosenbaum. And there was even Kristen Crook, Lana. Lana was there, but I could not approach. It was like staring into the sun, and so that was I couldn't do it. But yeah, so full circle moment there. But that was something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how many things like spun out of COVID, So like your passion and desires to like to push things forward, and like most of us started all of our YouTube channels around that time. We're like looking for anything to fill the void. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool.
I love how you just switched creativity too. You took your creative passion and just channeled it in a different way. That's so dope.
Yeah.
But I think the through line is storytelling. I think that's what I'm starting to realize throughout my whole artistic thing, is that with songwriting, with comic book story writing and stuff, it's storytelling, because the way my songs anyway are they're not like, they're not kind of chorus bridge, it's just long stories. But yeah, so it's all sort of that.
Well, and that kind of touches on something that really, quite frankly, surprised me too, because in preparation for this, I knew about your comic book background. I had zero knowledge of your music background. So when I went into YouTube and typed in your name, all of a sudden I'm getting like all these different songs that you've done, John Lennon covers and things like that. So Yeah. So I guess like, how do you see your interaction with comics? Like how does that level of creativity kind of match what you did musically? Like what itch does that scratch for you in comparison to music?
It's sort of, so the music for me is like this is almost the soul, understanding the soul, and it's the darker stuff. It's the emotional side and everything. In comics, I found is more like my actual personality. Because when people listen to my music and then meet me, they're like, this is not the same. This is not the same person.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure. I don't know. Maybe you can see the darkness, the sadness behind the eyes. But with the comics, I feel like there's more of a connecting with my kind of on the surface personality. So it's sort of the funny side. It's kind of it's different sides of me that kind of come out at the same time, but with the through line of storytelling and stuff. And honestly, I think at the top of everything is kind of movies, where I when I write my comics, when I draw my comics and everything, I'm not thinking about the compositions or the way the paper is. It's like it's moving. It's a movie playing in my head, and then I just randomly pick out the moments that I think would be. But I don't think about it that much. Just kind of the moments that pick it. And while I'm doing that, there's music playing. There's there's lighting. There's noise. There's everything. And so it's kind of like the comics, the music, and movies on the top of everything, just kind of mixing it all together. And so so there's music while I draw in my head. I mean, and then there's voices in my head.
There's voices in your head telling you what to do.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but
no, absolutely. And it's kind of funny that you said that, like, the music is the soul, because as a person who consumes comics and talks about comics, I've looked a lot into like how to talk about comics, and I read I read and listen to a lot of like food reviews and music reviews, and it's funny how there's such a difference between how people talk about like things that you read and consume visually as opposed to things that listen to sonically. So no, that makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think there's a code that we haven't quite cracked yet when it comes to like marrying comics and music together. Like I know a lot of creators, they're listening to music while they're scripting or where they're inking or something like that. And it's just such a shame that we haven't quite figured out exactly how to like marry those two in a seamless way, because like when you're reading a physical comic, you don't want to interrupt that process, by switching things on. I know like creators like Ron V, for instance, he had a book called Radio Apocalypse. And Radio Apocalypse was a beautiful book, and they mentioned music. It's a radio station surrounded by a compound in the middle of like the apocalypse, right?
Nice.
And they mention music throughout the book, and the cue is then to play that song at that moment, I believe.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that you can live that vibe, you know what I mean? Right. And so like there's a lot of interesting things I think we can do with that, but like I'm not sure if we've cracked that yet, but it's a cool thing to explore.
I'm on it. But marrying music and comics. Yeah, I would love to do a kind of, because audiobooks exists, but an audiobook album, so you press play as you start the comic, and then it kind of all comes out together and you read along, but there's also the music and everything. And who knows?
Yeah. Well, I think you'd be the perfect guy for that because your background, you obviously have, your foot in both worlds. So I could maybe do really cool.
I've done a few. I mean, I've shared those songs. Were you about to mention that? Yeah.
Well, now you can bring it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and, I remember I made this song called "The Sculler Is Born" about the Steel Streets guy that I put on the Patreon, and that's what it was. It was just 80s beats and a voiceover being like, "Where was the mic? The Sculler is born." All these things.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
dude, I'm so glad that you said that it's 80s beats too, because like Nick and I were just talking last night, and I was telling him I'm reading through Steel Streets, and I feel like if there was music put to this, it feels like it should be like a John Carpenter synth kind of like vibe to it.
100%. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
All these things, like, for sure. The whole time.
You can hear it. Sure. You can hear the synthesizer. That'd be amazing. Great. Yeah.
See, that's also cool that the vibe comes through.
Yeah.
As you're reading it, you want to have that driving beat. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, you do a lot of like marketing on the side. Like the image you've created is so unique that like you could pick up any one of your books and it has that same thread, but it's unique to that book as well. So like, I think you've done a good job of like first, like marketing yourself, marketing your brand, and having your comics have just slightly different flavors, enough to be unique and distinct, but like all in the same umbrella. So Just a really great job of doing all that. But
I think it's just me trying to figure out because I am new to comics, so I'm trying to figure out what I actually like doing, because like after 10 issues of ZuperHero Comics Presents and 10 issues of Steel Streets and a handful of like mini comics and zines and stuff, I'm just trying to figure out what I like to do, what people like to see from me, like I'm working on an underground comic. People seem to love humor, my silly, raunchy comics. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to do a few more of those. Cause I have a great time doing them, So yeah, it's just me trying to figure out exactly what I like, before I settle down on something. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about like characters and stuff, you mentioned before that you like to create characters growing up, or even recently, just like making characters in general. So like when you have a portfolio per se of characters, like how do you pick and choose? Like, okay, this one is interesting. It reminds me of this one guy I met in the subway, or this one girl I saw at a restaurant. How do you pluck that out of that portfolio, put it down on paper, build a world, build ancillary characters? Like, what's that process look like for you?
I feel like it's more akin to acting than it is to anything else, because let's say I'm writing. I think you're giving me too much credit when it comes to the thought that goes into into everything.
Sure, yeah, I'm just buttering your bread for 40 minutes. Oh yeah, for sure.
I wish I was the artist that was, very heady about it and like had it all laid out and planned and every character is constructed. But I think my approach is more. I understood, I think, a long time ago that we're all just kind of making it up as we go, and that there is no real plan. Like nobody has anything figured out. And so I figured, in terms of storytelling and character development, I like keeping it just kind of, it's improv, it's jazz, because I think life is more like that. But when I have an idea for a character and I put them in, how do I develop that character? I just start, and then as the character interacts with the world around it, I do think a little bit about how would this person react, who is this person, not so much their history, but more their tics or their personality. Like what do they, how do they see the world, So there's kind of this idea that, like acting, it's reactionary. It's yes, and it's kind of this, it's more that vibe versus I am now in this world. It's like, oh, I'm in this world. I need to bounce between.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because like from like my perspective, I've never tried to write anything. I don't create characters and stuff like that. So I always think like it's a huge task to do something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like I can talk about it, but I can't. I've never done it before. So to me, it's just like this magical process that happens to work out, and everybody has like a thing that they do. But like just like everything else in life, like you said, you just kind of. You just have fun doing it. You just take a crack at it, and whatever, hopefully you have a good outcome, and it's something that you would like to consume. And if you like it, then others would like it. So,
and also just kind of letting the characters breathe on its, like letting the characters just be the characters. Like for example, when I was doing Punk Slim and Mop Top Bob, that came about. So I was, those character sheets I had done with the circles and each character head in ZuperHero Comics.
Yep. I
had done one sheet with the characters that I had already, and then I wanted to do another one, but I had fucking circles to fill, and so I didn't. So I just started, sketching, making up characters, and there was the gorilla with the mop top and the thing with the thing. So that's how those characters were born. And then I was having coffee with my friend Jonathan Marks, Baravecchia, and we were just talking about it, and I was like, we should do something together. And he was like, 100%. Do you have a story? I'm like, I have a million stories. Like, whatever. I'm just like, let's just start. Let's see. A story will find itself, Right. And then we just started talking about it. And as we were talking and having a good time, we're like, oh, they should be punkers. They should be this and this and that. And then I just did a script quick, sent it to him. And then when I got back the art, it kind of dictated the story. It dictated the vibe a little bit. And that's when they all started talking like, oh, rad man and all these things. I just let the characters be, And then once you kind of establish who they are, more or less, now they can react to the world around them. And so how would they react to someone coming through a portal? They'd be like, oh, fuck, man, what are we going to do? It's like, oh, we're so cool, but we're kind of lame. But they're like, they're kind of they're Bert and Ernie type thing, So it's kind of, but so it's kind of just letting them, establishing a certain personality. I think you only need really one personality trait. Because most of us got one or two. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then we just react to the world around us. I don't know.
That's true. And Jonathan Marks makes it so easy.
100%. Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because one of the things that I've been thinking about is the frequency in which you put out books. Like, you have a schedule that, like, quite honestly, the publisher should be very envious of. Like, you are very on schedule. But it makes me think about the creative process, because, like, with that, I mean, the ideas must be flowing constantly. So you mentioned working with Jonathan Marks. Yeah. Was that a byproduct of having just so many ideas that you, quite frankly, could not put on the paper yourself? Or was that just really more of a collaboration? And where do you see that evolving in the future?
Well, in Jonathan's case, we both lived in the city at the time. And we were just buddies. We just became friends through the con circuit in New York. And I love his art. When I first saw it, I was like, I love his art. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. And getting to know him and talking, it's like, I love your art, but I want us to do something. And if we do something, I want it to be particular to us. So it's not going to be painterly. I don't want you to paint a comic, because that's insane. That's an insane thing to ask somebody. Just go dirty, go thing, whatever. I like putting artists in their discomfort zones, just to see where they kind of think. He's a pro, so he just, he was like, oh, I don't know if and then he just did it, and it was amazing.
Yeah, right.
But in terms of ideas, I don't know if I have so the hardest thing I did in comics was making a first issue, like the ZuperHero, the beginning. I remember that was tough. Like, I didn't understand how to do it. There were so many iterations of it, and I just didn't understand how to tell a story. And I started from the beginning. And I just kept going. I kept rewriting. I was like, this sucks. This is terrible. And then it clicked in me at one point when I'm watching, like, Smallville. They start you in the middle of the action, A lot of times. They start you in the middle, and then they cut to the credits, and you're left wondering what's going to happen. And then they give you the rest of the story, and at the end, it's the bow. And I was like, that's a perfect thing to do. So then I was like, why am I starting at the beginning when I can just start in the middle and then just, like, go back and forth? And so that's where the concept came out, that I could just start a story in 1985 or whatever, and then I can go back to the 50s and do something. And so now it doesn't matter what I write, because I could always go back and add stories there. And so, to actually answer your question, I don't have a fountain of ideas. It's more just, I want to do something with somebody, and then I just think, okay, what can we do? And a loose idea comes, and then we kind of build on it and improv it as it goes. My scripts are very loose. They're very, like, page 1, so this and this and this happens. Page 2, he says something. I don't know what he's going to say. I Stan Lee it afterwards.
You're right.
Put it all in afterwards on a typewriter.
Yeah.
And as for the future, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do have a few artists. I haven't announced it yet, but I think there's maybe 5 artists that are going to come and do some work with ZuperHero, where I have some that are doing either, like, a full issue, doing a little anthology, doing little minis that I put in the back of the book that then becomes a full issue. So it's and it's all these cool artists that I admire, that I think are that I like, and that are willing to work with me.
Yeah.
So I don't know, as time goes on, because let's be honest, the amount of books that I do, like drawing them physically, all of them, it's unsustainable. I mean, it's not like I just can't do that many books. It's too much for me, Even now, I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I can keep this up for for the next year. And so having other artists, do books, but that I write, and that I still, have a handle on the final edit on the vibe and everything. I think that's a cool way to keep the ZuperHero vibe going.
Yeah.
But while having a little more, breathing room for me, and also just exposing, having just awesome things happen. Because the motto at the beginning when I started the whole thing was always do the awesome thing. And so you think to yourself, I'm like, okay, I have a chance to do something, whatever, a book with somebody, but how can we make it amazing? I'm like, let's throw in this, let's throw in that, let's do that. It's like, but it's not cost effective. It's not. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Let's just I'm sorry, can we curse on this channel?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
go for it.
I was like, I don't care. Let's go for it. Let's see what happens, and then we'll deal with it, and then whatever. Yeah. So I don't.
Well, I know you were talking about like your process, and you spoke earlier, and I think Stu, you were going to cover like just like a daily routine. Like you had a certain quota that you heard was optimal.
I love the
right?
That Kirby quote you live by. If you want to work faster, throw away your eraser. Like, and I love your fearless do it yourself work ethic. With whether it's like printing your own stuff, or I feel like you've always got it out of the mud, so to speak. So I really respect that about you. I know you at one time had the of course, the a page a day goal, like fully a 1 page fully done and drawn. Are you still maintaining that quota? And what is a typical day look like to you? Just creatively, just what's your process? I'm always curious to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, a page a day. It's sort of I still try to do that, but I'm a little looser. Like as my own boss, I can run a loose ship sometimes, So it's sort of like I'll pencil a page, and then I'll ink that one, but then I'll pencil 2 more. And so it's not a full page, but then by the time Thursday rolls around, I'm like, fuck, and I have to do everything. And then it goes, the tooth splatter everywhere, just pour the ink on it, and just paint it black. So it's kind of, So it's sort of that. But my day to day, I wish I had more of a routine. I'm a little, seeing my work and knowing me and everything. It's not, it's not stable in here. It's not like a.
This isn't a healthy adult you're looking at.
I mean, this is like, I do my push-ups, I do my thing, but it's like, it's, I wake up, I'm a night owl and an early bird. So I love staying up late, but I also like waking up early. So I get no sleep. It's sort of like, I don't know. Let's say this. There's also two aspects. There's the business side, the like administrative side and stuff like that. And then there's the artistic side. So I kind of have to separate and divide my brain in 2 most days. Where the morning maybe I'll think about, how to expand the business side, and I'll do like emails and fulfillment, order fulfillments, and big picture things. Trying to just move the train along. And then I have the artist side, and I noticed I kind of I'm more productive more in the afternoon. So you just kind of, I don't know, I think about that, and I go out. I like to enjoy my life. The last thing I want to do is sit and draw all day. It's like I'm a, I want to get out there and live, because that's how you get the stories. And so a lot of the times I come home and I'm like, and I just have to finish it all. But it changes every day. Honestly, I wish I had.
Is there nobody else? Is there anybody else on the ZuperHero Comics payroll? Are you the one man show doing everything? Is anybody helping you out with any aspect of the business?
I'll stop you there. Payroll? No. No, I mean it's mostly me. My brother is sort of, sometimes he's older he's like 6 years older than me, so he'll get the odd email being like, "What the fuck do I do here?" And he'll be like, "All right, let me be big brother on this." But for the most part, no, it's just me.
Wow.
I'm just doing doing the thing.
Yeah. So it's safe to assume that you didn't receive my application to be CFO of ZuperHero then. So that's fine. That's okay.
Received and accepted.
If you need desktop support, I can try out.
Right.
That's funny. But like, where'd you learn all that? Like running a business and creating comics at the same time. You talked about like the balance of the workload, but like, where did you learn? I got to create a website. I got to get on social media and be great at that. Like everything else, you know what I mean? Like, I got to figure out how to ship orders constantly. I got to do all this stuff. Like, where does that come from?
All that is just learning as I go.
Just trial by error. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my background for most of my life, I've worked in the service industry. I've done every job. I did a night shift at a hotel, bartending, bouncing, everything up until, I don't know, a year ago or something, or even less. Yeah. And so my work ethic I've been beaten down enough to be like, I just have to work 12 hours. I have to do, because that's what I grew up on. where it's sort of like I can stand on my feet for 16 hours and take take all this, then I can do it. So it's kind of that mentality of just kind of plowing through. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in service, but when there's a busy shift and there's a crowd in front of you and a line out the door and no customer has any confidence that you could do what you have to do to get them their thing, the pressure that is, you just have to kind of
crazy, man.
Go through.
I've been a cook since 2009. It's like war. Like it's like, it's crazy. It's like you're in a foxhole together.
Yeah. And in the kitchen, it's even crazier. Like I've done the chef there where it's just sort of like tickets, the heat. It's crazy. Yeah, no, it's one of those things that it's like you just kind of learn as you go. And the website I had from music, because I was like, okay, everybody has a website, so I need a website. We live in the digital age, no matter how against it I am. Like, okay, I need that. Sure. Social media, I get it now. I didn't understand it before. I was like, it's ruining the universe. I don't understand it, but I'm like, I'll participate. Whatever. I got to do that. Fulfillment and orders. For example, when I did Bootleg Spider-Man, and the first time around, and there was the episode that went and I got all these orders, I didn't have the infrastructure set up because at the time I was, my mail order business was sort of, I get an order, pack it up, go to the post office and do it with them at the cashier, and like they would do the thing and I'd pay them. And then when Bootleg Spider-Man happened, all of a sudden I was way overwhelmed and I was going to the post office with huge bags and boxes of chocolate for them because I'd have to stand online for 2 hours while they did every single one individually, and I'd come in and every day and they would give me so much attitude. They hated me so much. I was in my Harlem apartment at the time and I was going to my post office. They look at me, they'd be like, oh, not this guy again. And I'll come out with chocolate. I'm like, hey, how you doing? How you doing, Sharice? How you doing, Sheriff? So it was nice. We were like, and then one day I came in with a big suitcase. And they were like, no, not again. And I was like, no. It's already paid for. Don't worry about it. And I had
nice.
So there was, exactly. Yeah. So there was that problem that I had to solve. And so that's all it is, really. Just kind of getting over hurdles. So then I created the system to have the mail order system. And I was like, okay, now that that's set, that's mine. I can walk over. Perfect. And then I don't know. You just kind of like, I don't know. I don't think I'm any in terms of like businesses. Like, I don't know. It's kind of you make especially in the arts, you make cool stuff, and hopefully people want it, and then you send it to them. Yeah.
You solve any problem that comes your way after that demand hits, right? So
it's sort of like you got no whole milk. Guess what? We're mixing skim and half. It's like we're just like we're working on it.
Yeah, definitely have done that before.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm hearing that too because it's like it so much speaks to everything you've said actually really speaks to like kind of that notion of like like there's no time like the present. Like you want to do something, do it now, and you're gonna figure it out as time goes on. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, thinking. What do they call it? Analysis paralysis, right? I think that's the term, right?
Yep.
Just if you start, you'll find that there was nothing stopping you. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a weird thing. Just to get past that first thing and just do it, and then you'll see that. I don't know. Like I get this a lot with comic book people who want to make comics and stuff, and they talk about kind of how do you put out so much work? How do you do this? Blah 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 blah. And I tell them like you just have to start, and you have to not be so precious about the work that you're doing. You have to understand that. I don't know, when I'm reading a Jack Kirby or a Ditko or any comic from the 70s and before, the drawing is whatever. You know what I mean? A lot of the panels you're just kind of like, okay, it is what it is. Even McFarlane in the 90s, you're just kind of like, okay, what's going on here? But what gets you through it is the story that you're in love with. And so I think people have to understand with comics, that's why writers and artists, when you get a great team, it's fantastic because it's literally both those things. You can't have a good book that's just art or a good book that's just writing. You need to have the marriage of the two. However, I will say that story is the driving force. And so I say this all the time. It's really a million records. A page is meant to be turned, right? So if you're an artist drawing the book, understand that your day's work is going to be turned in a second. Sometimes like splash pages, people look at it for 1 second because they want to know the rest of the thing. Yep. You think as an artist, your splash page is going to be like, like looked over every detail? No. That's for the artist edition. That's like later on in your career. In reality, it's like, oh, nice. Bam. And then you're back at the story. Where's the next word I could read? You know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of that is like sort of understanding that, being like checking your ego a little bit to be like, yeah, your day's work is going to be a minute in someone's, not even a minute. It's going to be 10 seconds in someone's day. Understanding that it's all good. But then at the end of it all, you have a body of work. And that's what matters. It's sort of creating a body of work that people can reference and go back to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, like speaking of body of work, I would love to, get some of your thoughts on some of your books over here, so I can switch things over to do a top down real quick, and we can take a look at some of your books in further detail if you guys are game for that, and we can throw some questions at you that we have left over during that.
Absolutely.
What do you think, man? We're gonna head that way.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Let's do that. All right, so we have pretty much your whole bibliography, I would imagine. You have so many books out, man. Let me just splay these all out over here. You have a hell of a collection of books. We already touched on like your insane ability to just pump some books out and everything. So, dude, a lot of crazy stuff here.
Nice. Thank you for showing them.
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to just start with Bootleg Spider-Man real quick because I feel like that was probably the biggest wave of new fans to your stuff, right? Through Cartoonist Kayfabe. Sure. I actually remember sitting there that Thursday morning when they did their lives as a King Kayfaber, and they were pulling up some of your books. They had Steel Streets like 1, 2, and 3 or something like that as well. I think you met him at Baltimore Comic-Con. You handed him a bunch of stuff. If Jim wants something, Jim gets something, right? If Ed wants something, Ed got something, right? So
of course, that was the vibe. I think I posted on the Facebook group, saying I'm working on this thing, and then Jim just said I want one. Yep. I was like, Jimmy talks, Mahdi walks. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
Well, I remember sitting there that Thursday morning and watching these guys like go through this stuff and watching the video come out, and I'm like, oh, I got to get that. So I immediately ran to your website and grabbed a copy.
Oh, amazing.
At cover price. So I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day.
And so you were talking about, shipping all those orders out and how the post office workers were mad at you and everything. Well, I was one of those reasons why they were mad at you. So, so that was, yeah. But man, like, what's your fondest memories of that whole thing, man? And take us back to that.
Well, making the book was one thing. It's just kind of business as usual. But I remember actually when the video came out, I was at work. I was at the cafe, and that was the day I was doing my double shift. So I was sort of there the whole day, and I get a kind of a in my pocket, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And it's Ed saying, it's like, yo, the video's out. Get ready. And I was just like, oh, what are you? Haha, that's cool. Amazing. And then for the rest of my shift, my phone was just vibrating in my pocket. I had to put it away because I couldn't. And then I come back and there's hundreds of emails. I'm like, oh, what's happening? Instagram. So it was a surreal moment just because, it really felt like you had your the internet viral moment that people talk about,
Yeah.
But it was really cool because I remember even before that, I had sent it before they did the episode, I had sent one to Jim and he showed it off. Mm-hmm. And before Bootleg, I was kind of, it was like I was making a name for myself slowly but surely, like it was happening. I had maybe 10 books out or something. And so it was working a little bit. But then after Jim shared the Bootleg Spider-Man, just thousands of people had their eyes on my work. And then when they got to my stuff, they were able to see that I had more than just the bootleg. And so it was amazing. It was just having a signal boost like that. It was a huge help to the overall career,
Well, and it's pretty smart too, because you talked about like, as an unknown artist creating unknown stories and characters, right? It's like it's a little hard to get your name out there, to be noticed, to be seen, and sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity, taking something that's well known and putting your own spin on it, because this is all you. Like this is your brand, this is your personality, this is your storytelling style, this is your flair on a familiar character, which is the gateway drug for me and for Eric and Stu for sure into everything else. So like it's not like a model that people should emulate on purpose, but it's a cool thing that you fell into, and I'm so glad like you're reaping the benefits of all that. So yeah,
I mean, really it's to go back to music. This is sort of the I've always been a guy. I love writing original songs, and whenever I would do gigs, I was adamant on only doing original songs. I was that musician, so I would do like 10-minute solos of just original stuff and blah blah blah, stuff like that. But then every now and again, you have to throw in a cover, just to kind of give people something to fall back on. And so Mahdi Khene doing Jimi Hendrix or doing Bootleg Spider-Man is kind of the same. It's the same vibe. It's like it's always going to be me, but just maybe the subject is a little different.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One more question about Bootleg Spider-Man before we move away from it. You at Heroes, you told me that you gave a copy to John Romita Jr. I was just wondering if you could tell that story again and how that interacts with it.
Yeah, so I was John Romita. I love John Romita. I grew up on John Romita Sr., McFarlane, and John Romita Jr. Those were my three Spider-Man artists, and Ditko, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But John Romita Jr. was more in my day-to-day when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so I went up to his table, and for some reason there were it was at the beginning of something, so there weren't many people online. So I was like, hey, can I just give him some? He was like, yeah. So I meet him, nice guy, very he's built, he's just like there, he shakes your hand strong, and I was just kind of like, hey, I want to show you, I'm like, I have a table here, and I made these bootleg comics of Spider-Man, and he's looking at him, and as he's flipping through them, his face starts to change, the horror on his face, and of course me, being a psycho, I just start, look what I did to him. Look what I did to him.
What have you done to my boy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then he was super nice. And then he did a classy move where he asked me to sign them, which was super nice. Yeah. So it was very cool to have that kind of that moment with him. Yeah,
that's awesome. So crazy.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many copies of this you printed? Like, I mean, keep that close to your chest if you want to, but like I'm assuming.
I don't know. I mean, quite a few. I don't remember what the pre-order numbers were, but but a lot more than like that first one. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly. Maybe close to 1,000, maybe.
Yep.
Something like that.
And then I know you colorized and enlarged it, or you enlarged it rather.
I did the second one. Mm-hmm. I did the second one in between, and I wanted to just do a bigger comic as well. Just because I wanted to see the art a little bigger, and then I had the idea of doing the reprint, the same size, so that it could be a nice.
Yep.
Because I mean, when I would see the pictures of the small one and the big one together, I was kind of like, oh, it's not very satisfying to me. I don't like that, and so I was like, let me just reissue it bigger, and then of course add some pages to.
Yep.
I can't just reprint something. You got to have a little more. You got to have something.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd do a little introspective on their relationship and their life.
Yeah, God, that was just so cool. It's little gems like that that Cartoonist Kayfabe gave the world, and so definitely put everybody on your radar and everything. So yeah,
absolutely,
it was just so cool. Yeah, very very nice of them to do that for sure.
Absolutely.
But Stu, let's get into some Steel Streets here, man.
Please,
yeah, absolutely. Issue one. This is another conversation we had at Heroes. Like, can you just talk about your original ideas for Hiroshi, and that you kind of had him as I think it was a German sex worker initially with the fishnet stockings, and how he kind of transformed into the Daredevil TMNT origin that we got in the issue. But if you could just kind of revisit that a little bit.
These are private conversations we have, Stu. Airing out all my shit. No, I'm kidding. So initially, I did. I was actually doing an issue of ZuperHero Comics Presents, where it was a post-apocalyptic kind of future story, where one of the main characters, Z, because he wore like a kind of like a do-rag thing before, and then I gave him a metal helmet. So it was actually the helmet of Hiroshi, And then as I was doing it, I was kind of losing steam with the books. And one thing creatively, I don't like to force things that much. So if something's not working, I let it go for a little while, let it breathe, and then maybe go back to it later, maybe not. Um, but it wasn't working that much. Then I thought to myself, wait a second, I like the helmet. The helmet spoke to me for some reason.
Yeah.
So I decided to do kind of a funny zine that I thought could be just, a one-off fun, like an homage with the duotone or lettratone and stuff like that. And I started, but initially the story was sort of, the first time I wrote it, he was going to be like a German sex club goer, like psychopath kind of killer guy. That's what he was. Hence the costume, the high rise boots and the crop top and all these things. Supposed to be like a kind of guy. But then as I was doing it, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't burn that bridge right away. Maybe I should leave it a little open ended so that if I want to do something, I can, And then after I did the first one, I started kind of like, sitting with the idea a little more. I thought, oh man, it'd be actually kind of cool to tie this into the Ninja Turtles a little bit, do an homage of an homage of an homage, a spoof of the spoof.
Sure.
Just because I also like the idea of one idea spawning something every 20 years. And I haven't seen anything like that around me. So I thought, oh, I'll just do it. Because you had Daredevil, then, later on you had the Ninja Turtles. And I was like, oh, now I can be the third act of this little nugget of an idea. And so after that, it was sort of, after issue 2, it kind of just went off on its own world. And I haven't really done any Ninja Turtles like references, like plain, not references, like homages or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't tried to tie it into that for, I don't know, the last 7 issues or something. But but that's basically, that was the impetus of it all.
Well, it's like evolved, and there's clearly some influences, but then it evolves into its own thing, and it becomes its own thing over time, and all of a sudden, like, you completely forget that was even how it started, right? In a way. Yeah. And so, like, the backstory gets so much more flushed out, and there's a lot more people involved, and it's a little bit more diabolical than you maybe thought, and maybe it wasn't such like it started like a happenstance, but like there's an evil behind it as well, or wrong intentions behind it. So
yeah, I think evolution, like evolved, what you just said is like the perfect word too, because like sometimes homages become like a snake eating its own tail kind of thing, but this really does, like, just like TMNT from Daredevil, it broadened the world and it evolved it and took it into a totally different place. So
I mean, I'm glad you said that, because that's the worst thing to happen, is that it just starts to kind of circle itself.
Yeah.
It doesn't know when to die.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you got the Fury in here, like, evolving over time. I actually got that little. You did some of these head sketches, so I definitely had to pick one of those up. It was just so good.
Little pencil things. That was a Patreon thing, right?
Yeah. It was. Yeah. Yep. One of the many benefits of Patreon, guys. Make sure to check it out. Yeah. Just so cool.
Issue 6 with Francine, you changed colors for the first time, because we normally just get the gray and the red. What was behind that decision? I love that color you chose and that usage of it.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what caused you to make that decision?
Yeah, so this was the first time I had done a 2-parter story, and so I wanted it to have kind of a cohesion to it, like a cohesiveness to it, and so I thought a color change would be sort of would be necessary for that. But also the story, because it takes place at BMR Labs, and it's all these things. I wanted to kind of hospital-y, turquoise. It looks like Scrubs almost, that kind of color. And something to kind of tie the 2 parts together. That's why I did that. And also because, I just like switching things up. Sometimes it's just sort of to change up I think I got tired of red. So I wanted to do something else.
Yeah, that's better than it was a printer error.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I didn't
actually. There is a printer error on this. I think if you turn, keep going until you get to there's some pages where there's the word balloons are. I think you can see it there, where the word balloons are turquoise as well.
Okay.
And I think that was actually a printer error.
Oh, right here. Yeah.
Yeah, you see that? Yeah. So that was not me.
Come on. Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But when I saw it, I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, well, it's so subtle. Like, it's not this dark. It's so subtle that like it just works, and it almost looks that looks really cool. The art shift or the color shift, I kind of took it into like, well, it might be more dark, like it's more like maybe it's happening at night, and so sometimes like things also you mute the colors down a little bit more, like she's sneaking around. It's like a different vibe. But I like that sterile hospital reference that you gave too, because it's like a lab and everything is just kind of.
But I think also. Off. Yeah, my answer is just onefold. I think what you said is actually more insightful to the actual story, because you're right. It does it does lend to that vibe,
right?
Because it's kind of nighttime. It's sort of, absolutely. So Stu, I think Nick's answer.
I'll dub my voice over your response.
Yeah, please.
We're gonna get a deep fake Mahdi now.
Yeah.
I am a.
Hey, if I could jump in here, just talking about the format of these books too, because you were talking about how you changed over to a magazine format for some of the reprints and Bootleg Spider-Man 2. But I've been a lover of like mini comics and zines and indie self-published comics for a long time. But I think yours is unique in the way that normally people like honestly just took an 8.5 by 11 page piece of paper and folded it in half. But yours have more of a wider formats than that. What was your thought pattern behind that? Like, what made you go for a slightly more landscape look on these books?
Well, I did. The first books I had done were the first ones I tried were comic book size, and I was going through different comic book printers, and they were kind of giving me a little bit of guff when it comes to like full bleed and the 6.952 of the thing. It just seemed so arbitrary and weird to me that I decided to just find a printer that could do just standard sizes that I could just dictate myself. And that's why I go with Fireball Prints out in Philadelphia. And I was looking at manga because I grew up also reading the Dragon Ball Z books.
Oh, yep.
And I always loved the size of them. Comic books, American comic books, I love them. It's cool, but I don't understand the size. I don't get it. When I'm reading it, it's it doesn't. I don't know. I'm an on the go kind of guy, and so I liked having stuff in my back pocket. I like having stuff in my backpack, and I just wanted to do kind of closer to manga size, but just easy 6x8 instead of 5 point whatever it is.
Yeah,
and also I like it's for me it's more. Drawing at this rectangular is strange to me in terms of the format and how you have to lay out a page. But a square is a little more, it's closer to a square. So it's almost like a TV. It's almost like a little more, you get more widescreen things if you want. You know what I mean? It's sort of a slightly more cinematic to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the correlation to manga like makes so much sense. I can't believe I didn't bridge that gap previously because it's right there in front of you. I should have known.
Yeah. Yeah, but just because they're floppies, I don't think people make that connection. Just because they're not hardcovers or anything. But yeah, that's what that was.
Yeah, and it's smart because like this this size when it gets reduced, I mean, you can still get that landscape shot, but you can still get these amazing vertical panels too. Yeah. So you can you're still getting the best of both worlds, and you're not, that ratio is not exactly traditional like American size. So very versatile.
And you it's a little more forgiving. Because the smaller something is, the harder it is to see mistakes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Like details and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I work twice up most of the time.
Right.
It depends. Sometimes it's like 11 by 15. Sometimes it's 12 by 16. But like the double page spreads from issue 8 of Steel Streets, those pages are huge.
Right. Yeah. I think I got.
Actually, give me 1 second.
Yep.
I think I meant.
You got some original art for us, man? What you got there?
Yeah, so that double page spread, this is the original.
Ooh.
That one.
Wow. Dude, that's massive.
Yeah, it's it. And it's fun because actually it's 2 pages stuck together. But also, actually, I don't know if you can see, there was, if I can light box it, maybe not. This whole leg here is taped on. Because initially, her leg was up and against him. And then I cut it all out and did paste ups all over. There you go. You can see it. and this is all added on, and so it's it's basically 3D at this point. But I just kept hacking at this paper until I could get it all, the way I wanted. This was that, yeah. And then
that's something real quick before you switch off of that. That was something that I'm embarrassed how long it took me to realize that was happening in some books. You know what I mean? Like artists can initially draw something, but then like they're cutting things out and replacing whole panels. And when you look, and you don't know that until you see artist editions, really.
Yeah,
you know
and these are all sort of because historically, comic book pages they're working materials, like they're pencils, they're paper, they're you know what I mean? They're a means to an end, which is the book. And I think I have some more here. This was the
let's bring it back.
I think this is the second page after Francine gets punched. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, these are kind of, and I loved this concept that I did where you turn it around. You have to turn the book around, because it allowed me to kind of, follow the story slightly, slinking it out instead of just doing a standard story thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I have, I think, one last one here that I did on huge pages.
Are you still doing some digitally, or is everything? Because I heard you say at one time you were kind of like splitting the process and doing some things digitally. Is that still happening? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think after issue 8, I went full traditional because I do enjoy drawing on paper more than digital. But for up until issue 7, I think a lot of it was spliced, digital and practical. Yeah, but I think after issue 8, most of it is on paper.
Wow.
Well, and I think that speaks a lot to just the comic books itself. Like I love digital artwork, but like I gotta say, with this being a nostalgia medium, when I see real physical artwork and I see like what you talked about, how like you had to cut the leg and reposition it, like that's just so inherent to classic comics. It just like it warms my heart.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fun for me too. When I'm working on paper, I like the physicality of it. I like that I have to get up sometimes and cut the thing, and I have to look at it, and it's in my face. My hands are dirty, stuff like that. Yeah, no, it's a fun thing. Clive Danger was a fun book I did where I literally I wanted to get better at lettering. That was the whole point.
Yep.
I just wanted to do lettering practice, and so I thought to myself, let me just make a comic that will help me get better at lettering. And so I hand lettered the whole thing, and I created this one-off comic just to get better at lettering.
That is so cool.
The whole point of it. I was watching a lot of James Bond.
That's awesome.
That's funny. Did you get your Ames guide out, or would you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was all Ames. I have I don't know where it is. Like it's not quickly referenced, but I have all the initial. You can see all the guidelines and everything. Yeah,
that's great.
And for this one too, I had made a theme song for for Clive Danger.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good one. I love that one. One I want to talk about though is this one right here, man. This was so cool. So this is the first book that I saw Jonathan Marks on, and this was my introduction to him. So like when he was coming out with like other books coming up, I know he was on Bear, Pirate, Viking, Queen, and I looked at that. I was embarrassed because when I started reading the book, I'm like, damn, this art's incredible. And then I was like, this name's really familiar too. And then it took me days to like figure it out, But
that's amazing.
That's really cool. So yeah, I mean, this was a hell of a thing. And you followed this up with was that music or Record Store Rendezvous? Like
yeah.
And I love the format of this too. So
that speaks to his versatility as a versatility. I can't pronounce words.
Yeah,
apparently.
versatility
to his art, because he did. His stuff is mostly painterly. It's very painterly before.
Right.
And this time he kind of did straight to ink, almost cartoony, more cartoony at times.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, look at that. When you look at his face, Punk Slim's face there, it looks like a photo of something, but I don't know how he does it. I've had him over at the studio, and watching him draw is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to color his work, which which was awesome for me because I had to change perspectives on how I color things.
Right.
Because normally I just color, standard, you color the face, you color the shirt, color whatever. But with his work, I had to do stuff. Like if you flip back to the page right before, actually, I had to do stuff where, I put him all in green and him all in yellow because his line work is sometimes abstract at times.
Right.
And so you kind of have to, you kind of have to do different, and you get little mistakes. Like at the top of there, his third leg, that wasn't supposed to be colored. And he was like, oh, that was just kind of like a motion line.
Yeah,
whatever.
right,
But me, I took it. I was like, I want to color it in because I think it'd be, one, it's hilarious. And two, it's just like, shows motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a great, and it was the first time actually I write for someone else, this book. So it was a really fun process.
Yeah, I think that it just speaks to, you obviously can handle both sides of it, and so it's fun to see other people drawing on top of your stories as well, and it's just this is a really good issue. This was one of my favorite ones that you put out. That and Lost at Land, of course, with everything else, but like these two issues here were the ones that were like, oh shit, okay, all right, this guy, man, all right, it kind of solidified my, all right, well, whatever he puts out, I'm buying. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and of course you got to have your wrestling scene.
Yeah. And that story will be continued in another issue at some point.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Let's go.
So eventually, what I want to do with these little mini stories is, keep including them in the back of books, and then you'll get the full issues at some point, and it will all kind of another way to do little periodicals.
And this is a great one too.
I love your little ads and
go into the ads, man. Yeah, because that was definitely something we wanted to talk about.
Just was that something you always planned to do, or like where were you at? Where did that idea come along when you were?
That was in issue 1 of Steel Streets. That was the first time I had done ads. Because if you look at the early superhero books, there are no ads or periodicals or anything. Because keep in mind also, as I'm starting comics, I'm also learning about comics.
Right.
So there are things that I would read, but I wouldn't pay attention to, or I didn't care about back in the day. I didn't care about the ads, at the time when I was reading comics. Like, oh yeah, cool. There's new toy. There's new this, that. But I didn't see them as artifacts of a time period or nostalgic, pieces of work. And then when I started doing the Zupa shoe, this is why I love also indie publishing, because nobody gives a fuck if you do stuff like this. You can just you can get away with so much for now, But yeah, so after Steel Streets 1, when I wanted to do an homage to the comics of the 80s and 80s zines, that's when I started doing the ads, and I had such a good time doing them. I was like, oof, well, this is another amazing way to build up the world. Ooh, now you're just showing off, Nick.
Yeah, yep. No, keep talking.
Just showing off.
Sometimes these ads are real. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Exactly. Yeah, that's also something I wanted to do, where you never know what's real and what's not with the ads. Like I have things for books that I'll never make. Maybe I will make them. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I found it to be such a nice way to kind of build the world and build the mythos of, because at the end of the day, superhero comics in itself is the art piece. It's not the comics or the thing. It's the whole idea of superhero comics, where in 50 years, looking back, I want people to have a doubt whether superhero comics was actually around at that time. Like, did it exist? What the hell with the ZZGA? Was this dude, was Stan Lee like messing with this guy? Like, what's going on? I want there to be such a melange of things that people had no idea what's real and what's not. That's and that's something you can do with indie publishing, where it's just sort of, there's no rules.
No. Yeah, you just do what's what you feel like doing and what's cool. And like, dude, you even have, I mean, you're saying 50 years from now, I want to send away, like, there's some of these things, and I think I mentioned this on your Patreon one time. And I didn't get a clear answer from you, and I'm not looking for one today. But like, some of these are like, send your $1.95 to this address, and you get like a sticker pack. And I'm like, should I do that? And then, dude, me and a couple of the guys got real deep. We went through like every one of your books and found the different addresses and stuff. We're like, what is going on in this thing? So like, you didn't realize you had a stalker as a fan.
Well, if you triangulate all the addresses, you'll actually find the treasure. Don't you know that?
It's gonna be like Hiroshi's helmet, like it's gonna look like that in the middle of New York somewhere. Yeah.
Speaking of which, actually, let me get a few props, because this is.
Let's do it.
I should have been more prepared. Give me a second. Yeah, so I have a few things to show off.
Do it, man. Switch
So
them over.
whenever I'm doing these ads, I think if you go to ZuperHero Time and Tide, that book towards the if you go to issue 8.5 of Steel Streets,
I'll get you.
It's hard to keep track.
No worries.
If you flip to the to the beginning, there should be an ad for a yes, there you go. So whenever I'm doing these ads, a lot of it is Photoshop, but a lot of it sometimes I actually make the actual props.
Get out of here.
Because that's how I end up getting the photo shoots and everything. And so
this
is the Steel Streets Jam Band with all the names of the songs, of which one of them is The Sculler is Born, which is an actual song that I had done. Nick can testify to that. And, you have like the Steel Streets Jam Band. What is it? The Steel Street Jam Band.
Street Jam Band, yeah.
With the thing. So I actually make the props because one, I love also prop making. I think it's a fun thing. I do sometimes. I do the models of the dioramas and everything.
Yeah.
I just love this idea that these things can be in existence. There's a brand of cigarettes in the comic called Biggs Cigarettes, and I made that box as well.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yep.
You guys got me all excited.
No, go for it, man.
I made the Big Cigarettes box.
Wow,
dude.
So that if ever I want to do some filming or everything, I want to have the props kind of laying around so that kind of to build the world. And I'd like to give a shout out to. Oh, actually, before that, when I started doing these comics and started going, going well, my brother got this made.
Holy shit!
Whoa! What?
What?
Awesome. Isn't that so funny?
What?
That's
great,
cool.
man.
The boots and everything.
Like a little stuffed animal.
That's awesome. Wow.
So that was one big thing. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's my buddy.
Dude, you just made every member of the ZZGA just like jealous. Everyone in your Patreon's gonna want one of those now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, who knows? I mean, maybe if I get 1,000 ZZGA members, I can get 1,000 of these made.
Well, that's a great trend. That's a great transition, man. Let's get into the ZZGA because.
Actually, one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to give a shout out to this cat named Trevor Hazelwood.
Yep.
Who he's a Patreon member, but I met him at a convention in Boston at WickedCon, where he just walked by my table randomly, and then he picked up my comics, and he actually created the Hiroshi helmet. He gave it to me at Indie Comics Creator.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And the guy is super talented, and he's actually done cosplay of Hiroshi.
That was him? Yeah, I saw that picture. That's awesome.
So he actually created the whole costume, and I'm going to be at Terrificon in August.
Yep.
Where he's going to come as Hiroshi.
That's great.
And I don't know what I'm debating whether I'm going to bring this helmet and just fight him to the death, because I think there can only be one.
There can only be one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So stuff like this, for example, success for me is a lot of times success is about optics. So success means different things to different people, and oftentimes people look at the outside and think, oh, look at that, he's successful, he's this and that, this and that. For me, success is when there's poetry in motion, when everyone is kind of in the vibe with you, and it's like, it's not about money, it's not about numbers, it's not about that, it's about shit like this, and it's about like conversations like this, where Nick, you have my work, you guys have my art, and it's just this whole thing, we're all having a good time, like we're all hearing it together. And then when I got this, I was like, this shit meant enough to somebody that they willed my character into existence, which is insanity, which is crazy. And so I was like, well, I made it, I can retire, like I'm done.
That's right.
It's
it's like this ever-growing like ring of creativity. Like you start something, people take it, and they keep growing and growing.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. No, it's fascinating, and it's just sort of like it's an ecosystem. That's how it's like it's just a well of inspiration for everybody to pick from, and it's great.
Yeah. I know you were talking about your props earlier, and so like the ZZGA, that was a funny like way that you tried to reveal it. You know what I mean? Like you were like, here's the abbreviations at first, and I think it was Eric. I think Eric, you were the one that kind of like said, "Oh, is this like one of the old Marvel memberships or DC memberships?
Mary Marvel marching?"
Yeah. or the what was it, the Jupiter Justice Society or whatever it was.
Right.
So like, what was the origin of that? Were you like subscribed to those memberships back in the day? Like, talk us through that. How'd you create this, man?
I mean, I think those things went defunct in the 70s, no?
I don't want to age you. I don't want to
yeah,
put
exactly.
your age out there.
I'm immortal. No, I was like, well, it's no surprise. Like, I love, okay, all politics and stuff aside, Stan Lee as a character, I love him. You know, I think he's hilarious. Sure. I think he's great. And I love what he did for comics in the 60s. And I was looking at the Mary Marvel Marching Society and all these things. And what struck me was the whimsy. I loved the whimsy of fandom back in the day. I just thought it was fantastic and poetic and physical, where it wasn't just a forum, a board on a thing. It was on the internet. It was a physical thing that you would get once a year that could make you feel part of something. And so I thought to myself, like, I want to do that. And so I literally took that as the Mary Marvel Marching Society as a template, and I created my own version, because also ZuperHero Comics is the side effect of other stuff, right? So you have like it mirrors a lot of the things that they did back in the day, because again, I wanted to blur the line between reality and fiction.
Yep.
And so so I just went on and I decided to do my own version of the Mary Marvel Marching Society, which is the Superheroes and the Guild of America. And I just had a bunch of fun doing it, because I wanted to have the marketing thing with the videos. I wanted to make the pins on, the fact that you brought the card to Heroes Con. Yeah. It was amazing to me. It's fantastic. And my idea, my dream, in 10 years is that there is a convention, but then we have a ZZGA party, members only. And there's like, stuff like that. So it's kind of like, that's what I want to cultivate that. And every year, the year you joined is sort of marked by the accessories that you have. Like, you have the original pins. Next year, it'll be a different package. You won't be able to get those things anywhere else,
Nice.
And I don't care how much stock I have to burn to make that a reality, but I will. I swear to God. I'm the Joker in the Dark Knight. I am not. It's about sending a message.
That's right.
And so so that's what I wanted to do, and I think and it's been fun. I think people are it's a fun little thing that people can get into.
Yeah.
For only 13 cents a day.
That's right. 13 cents a day. You can feed a starving artist. No, what was that? This is good. I mean, you even like homaged the Marvel pads back in the day. And
for sure.
We have a buddy in our group, and they actually have some of the original Marvel sheets like this. And I've gotten like handwritten notes from like AOKs from them or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's really cool that as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh my God, he's thought of everything, man. He's got everything on here.
That's great.
So that was really cool. But yeah, if they want more information on that, man, ZuperHero Comics or superhero.com, right?
ZuperHeroComics.com.
ZuperHeroComics.com. Yeah. You can sign up for that annual membership. You got a lot of cool stuff. You get some online benefits as well. I think you get some digital downloads. What was that?
Yeah, you get free digital downloads.
Yep.
So you could always have your own archive, and then they're high quality PDFs. So you can even print your own comics if you want. But it's sort of like you get free digital downloads, and you get to be part of the most exclusive club in the US of A.
That's right. And just the other, I started doing a little bit of dabbling in drawing ever since Heroes, and we did the coasters, So like I was like, I need to get some pencils and stuff. I'm like, wait, I already got one. So I picked it up and I was like, it's time to draw, scum. I'm like,
that's right.
There's the cue right there. I got a pad, I got a pencil. So
you got everything you need.
You're pushing me in the right direction. So
that's amazing.
That's really cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, before we wrap things up, man, let's go ahead and talk about Bootleg Spider-Man 2, because I know you have some original art for sale. Do you want to show the people what you got? What's that all about?
Yeah, some pages have already sold, but I decided to, for the first time, sell off some original pages. So I have the cover and basically the whole issue of Bootleg Spider-Man 2 up on the site, so you can go check it out. And I'm a flexible guy, so if you have, if you want to get more than one page, just message me and then we can talk about it. I'm not past negotiations and stuff like that. But essentially, I'm selling off the whole issue and each page is going to get because I have to be extra with everything I do.
Oh yeah,
a superhero certificate of authenticity.
We'd expect no less.
Yes, you're going to get an official Zuper thing signed by me with a little sketch of like Spider-Man or something in there.
Cool.
So yeah,
that's so cool.
So if you want some original art, and I will be taking these to conventions and stuff. So who knows how long they'll be available? But either way, that's it. I'm selling off pages for the first time.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, any chance you can get some of your original art, I recommend people jumping on that. So take advantage of that opportunity for sure. Well, Mahdi, man, it was so good having you on the channel. Thank you so much for just like having us pepper some questions at you and giving us some insight and taking a look at some of your books, man. It's a real pleasure to dissect some of your work even closer.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine.
Absolutely. Well, man, where can I know you have a Patreon. I'm on there too. And you're like really active on there. And I love all your posts and seeing the stuff that you have coming out.
Thank you.
What are some of the things that people can look forward to, and where can people find you online, man?
Online on Instagram, I'm at Mahdi Khene and at ZuperHero Comics. You can get both those things. Facebook, same thing. I have my Patreon at Mahdi Khene. And in terms of work coming, I got a fun underground adult comic coming out soon-ish, I guess, let's say. I'm working on a few other things with different artists. So we got a few big things in the works that are going to be, I think the second half of this year is going to be pretty Zuper, if you ask me. Yeah.
I can't imagine you doing more work than you already do.
So. Oh, no. Load it on. It was pour some sugar on me, baby. I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on, man. We'll talk to you next time, bro.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Yep. Later.